nice one. Oh, he's off. All right. Today we're fishing flooded brush, and you got to use a lure that really can skip back into these tight spots. Right now, what I have is a 1/8 ounce dragon head and a 3.5 inch swim bait. Let me show that to you here. And all I'm doing is I'm skipping them into these little holes, and as soon as it's in there, I'm letting it come right back out. And I'm aiming for the, let's take a look at this. I'm aiming for the centers of these clusters of flooded brush back here. Let's see if we can get another one to come out here. You want to be absolutely fearless on risking losing these. You want to skip them back as far as you possibly can. What's sort of tricky though is to know when you feel it just hitting the next branch coming out, or when you feel it get hit. And the best indicator that I've found is actually watching where your line's going in. That's where this bright yellow braid comes in handy. A lot of times you won't feel the hit, you'll just kind of feel it tumble across the branches, and you'll just see your line moving one way or the other. On that one, I happened to see a swirl, which helped me identify, okay, it's time to set the hook. Now this is one of those presentations where kayak anglers have a distinct advantage. Right now, the water I'm in, it's maybe 6 inches. And I got to some deeper water back there. I'll stop short of saying that you can't fish too shallow with this presentation. But certainly if you got a foot of water, sometimes a little bit less, and if you have one of those brush stumps laying in there, it'll be deeper in and around that spot right there. The other advantage is that having a low seated position, you can really skip it really far back in there, whereas if you're standing, it's more of a, and you can skip in, you know, with that sort of roundabout cast, standing on a deck of a bass boat. But I think you have more angles if you're already down on this position. You can certainly get further back in there. One of the things I like to do is visualize the trajectory into the brush. And if I don't like the angle that I'm at, I'm going to reposition. Now certainly the small swim bait and dragon head isn't the only option for skipping back into this flooded brush. Let's look at two other options. Here's a swimming craw, and that one's weightless, and I have that on a 5/0 hook with just a little screw lock in the back. And here's what I originally learned how to do this on, a tube. Now what's important in selecting a bait to skip is that it has a fairly smooth surface, so that when it's skipping in, it really, you know, think of skipping rocks. When you pick up a rock on the shore to skip it, you want a nice smooth surface to do that. Same thing with your baits. You wouldn't want something like this ribbed bait, this grub. This tube is gonna do a really nice job. I'm also gonna trim the tails of this just a little bit. That's just going to allow it. There's nothing too long about it that's going to slow it down in its trajectory really far into the brush. that sucker over a log very loosely. You want to be real light with your touch with these, because if you yank real hard, it'll either wrap it around a branch on the top side or just dig into the one it's laying on. You see my opening right in there? I'm gonna drift. That's where I got the right casting angle. This one goes all the way to the bank. There's a riprap bank back there. If I can get it back in there between these two bushes. Gotta be someone in there. Oh yeah, there's some movement. It's important that you have these baits. Let's see if I can show you this. With the hook back into the soft plastic, just the tip of it. Saves you from a lot of frustration. Using a draw stroke is an important skill when just making very slight adjustments so you can get into the angle that you want to skip your bait back in there. Now I've switched to a black one, mostly because I'm back here where there's a lot of carp spawning and they're mucking up everything. We got very turbid water even right here. You can see them thrashing around in the shallows, and those darker colors are really going to show up better in the more turbid water. But what really helps is just the built-in action of that boot tail giving out some vibration. It's just a good bait that they can find in all sorts of water clarities. You came at it twice. Oh yeah. It was coming up over the log, swatted at it, missed it, and followed it over to the other side. Oh, that's a nice one. Nice fishy. Not forget about skipping Senkos. This pretty bass took a Senko, skipped way up in there. Now if the swim bait, the small swim bait, is my search bait with this type of skipping presentation, the Senko for sure is the follow-up, and make sure you get them if they're sitting in there. They didn't bite the swim bait. Swim bait scoots in across the surface, comes right back out. This one, I skip it in there and I watch the line very intently. Let's take a look at how each of these baits is rigged. This is the swim bait that I've been throwing. It's an 1/8 ounce dragon head. I want to go as light as I can, and that's a very sticky 3/0 extra wide gap hook. Actually it's a 45-degree angle jig hook. And for the Senko, I'm using this hook right here, and the reason I'm using this one, and I'm using a little do-it hitching post to keep that Senko pinned to the top. I hook it right onto that loop there. The reason I'm using that as opposed to this type of hook right here, where you just thread it on there and run it up to the top, is that little bend there catches in the brush quite a bit, and also you go through a lot of Senkos ripping it free. So this setup right here, I'm gonna go ahead and rig it, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. But when it's done, it comes out nice and clean. But just take a look right there at that little do-it hitching post. All right, I put that little hitching post hook on there. I'm gonna show you. I'm just gonna tighten that in all the way so that butts right up against it. Then you just finish rigging the Senko like you normally would with a extra wide gap hook. And obviously you protect that hook there from snagging on brush, back it up and slide it back in there. And that will come through brush much better than one with a little the little notch at the top. And you won't go through quite as many of these soft baits. Even if you don't really need to skip to deliver it to where you need it to be, if for instance you have an isolated piece of wood and there's nothing overhanging, you still want to skip it across it. The reason is it puts a very frantic, noisy thing over their heads. It looks like a bait fish trying to escape and then moving back in the other direction. So it's more about, it is about delivering it to a very hard to reach place, but it's also about creating the commotion that gets their attention. Now I've run out of real high quality flooded brush to target, and I just started drifting down this bank. I know I can pick up a couple fish here, but I think I'd rather go to the next example of it. Unfortunately, last night I did a little bit of reconnaissance. I got on Google Earth. I'm going to show you real quick how to look for this sort of flooded brush. Alright, we're going to take a look at what you can do with Google Maps to help find some flooded brush. This is our reservoir. The first day we spent some time in this this cove right here. We'll go ahead and switch that over to the satellite and see what that shows. So here's the creek channel. Mind you, this photo for Google Maps was taken in the summer and all of this was dry. When we were there, this stand right here, well, it was all wet from the bank there all the way up into the trees a little bit here. So I found the fish here and here. Actually, this little notch in the front produced very well. Caught some other nice ones along here, and basically I decided to take that and look in other parts of the same reservoir and see what we could find. Really, you just want to fly around. And what I did is I found another example of it, a bunch of other examples of it actually, and one of them is right here. So same kind of thing. Clusters weren't quite as big of flooded brush, but there was still a lot of different examples in the upper reaches of one of these coves. So the carp were all, you know, doing their thing up in here. Again, it was all wet today. Caught them in this area, caught them here and here. Didn't get any on that. That kind of surprised me. You know, and then moved out and worked that shoreline. So, you know, you find something you like, you get on Google Maps, and if you're lucky, it was taken at a time of the year that is going to really teach you something, and that was certainly the case here.